Hi, my name is Liz Thompson, and this is just a quick video on change and sort of the overview looking at how change happens. So I'm going to talk about various aspects and various models of change in this presentation. So in order to start, we think about, as industrial engineers, we will be charged with facilitating change. So this is a little picture of, we might ask somebody who is in the production area to actually use a different method or procedure or fixture. And we present to this person the particular methods we want them to use. But I think it's also important that we understand that it's not just an isolated person making a particular change, that they're actually part of a very complex system. The complex system includes other people they work with, so the people that are around them, that watch them, that see them, and individuals are social animals, so they care about the other people. It also would include sort of their own thoughts about the system, about who they are in the system, who you are in the system, how much they like their job, their motivations. So lots of things that are going on inside of the person's head. In addition, there's also kinds of rewards and punishment from managers, or from, there's roles of the bigger system, management, having rewards or punishments, or pay, looking at how much somebody gets paid. There's also individuals that aren't really part of their system, that come in and, like me, would come in and tell them to do something different. And so they have all this other stuff going on when we enter into the system. There's also people in their wider community that, like their family, that maybe aren't even part of the company, that also feed into the particular system. And then we enter into this system, and we just says, could you please do this differently? And we just sort of have a conversation with that individual instead of really recognizing the complex system that's around. So when we think about change, what I'm going to be encouraging us to do is to think about these complex systems and how they work together. Now, it's really interesting when we think about change and how we go about asking people to do things differently. We actually all have an idea about how we think change happens. So we think there's particular models, which is what we call, and models, when we think about models, the sort of the adage is that all models are wrong, but some are useful. So we have models of how we think change happens. One could be a carrot and a stick, like rewards and punishments are how people change. Another really prevalent one in education is that we educate, we teach people that once they understand the processes that we're trying to go for, that they will then buy into the system. That is a change model. There's also policing. So we might say, if you don't do this, you'll get in trouble. There's going to be someone overseeing you, some quality control or something. There's also models of just conversation. If I get to know somebody on a personal level, then this will allow us to change together, and they'll be able to respect me. We'll have conversations together. We hear this a lot when we talk about asking workers to make a change, that establishing relationship with the worker is a really important way of changing. At least that's the model we have. There could also be changes related to contractual agreements. Like we make an agreement with somebody that actually needs to be done, and we agree to do these things, and that will be a change model. Another way to think about it is we might set a goal. You've seen in companies where they set a goal of a certain production rate or something. Some people think that is the way to make people change. There's also project management. So we have a goal, a change in mind, and we break it up into smaller little work packages, and we schedule those and we track them. That's a change model in itself. Another change model that's probably not as prevalently used in business is actually prayer. That is a change model. The petition to a higher power is another way to think about how to bring about change. Now, I'm sure you recognize all of these change models, and we might have a preferred one. We might have one we kind of think, well, that's what we think will work in this situation. But there's also a lot of people that have thought over the years about various change models and what are they and how do they work. So I'm going to go through these just going to go through most of them, have a conversation, just explain them generally. So there's the TellCollaborate model. And in this model, we actually look at this concept of you either tell somebody to do something, so in an authoritative way, we indicate they should do something, or we sell them, we convince them, we persuade them, or we collaborate, we create a solution together. Now, there's the idea of this particular model is that these three things are kind of a continuum, and they're also fit for purpose. So when you look at tell, sell, collaborate, the change over time, if you tell somebody to do something, often they do it right away, especially if you have some power over them. Selling takes a little bit longer, but people generally do it once you persuade it, but it actually decreases over time, just like in the tell model, that as you're not policing, the decrease goes over time and decreases over time. And then in the collaborate model, this is a slower process, but theoretically, if you create a solution together, it will last longer. There's also this idea that this is fit for use, that you would use a tell model in an emergency situation, like safety, put your safety glasses on, something like that. You'll do a sell model in more of a business oriented, when you actually want solutions quickly. Collaborate is more used in a diverse or an inclusive environment. It's not as often used in business, but it probably should be used a little bit more because of the lasting change that can come with it. So there's other people that have thought about change, and one of the pretty famous ones is this idea of Donella Meadows and her systems thinking, and also related to Peter Senge and the iceberg model. And we'll talk a little bit about the iceberg model in the other video, but I'm going to go through it a little bit. So in a systems thinking, we have this concept that systems function exactly as they are designed. So the unwanted consequences that we often find are a problem, these are the results of the system functioning to perfection. So if we want to change the outcomes, we need to change the entire system. And that's really the concept of systems thinking or systems dynamics. Donella Meadows developed, and we're going to read an article by her, this idea of leverage and interventions. And at the lowest level, if we just do simple things like counting or standards of information, that will make a slight change in the system. But as we move up this lever, when we start looking at distributing power differently, or changing goals or missions and paradigms are the reasons we're doing things, then that actually causes more change in the system. And this is also related to Peter Senge's model. He's often attributed this, but others have used this before. The idea that outcome is the thing that's visible. So the problem that's occurring is visible above at the tip of the iceberg. But below it, where it's invisible, we have patterns that, like, when do these kinds of problems occur? What are the location of them? Who is doing them? Is it a certain time of day? Those patterns then indicate the problem that we're having. And then below that are this idea of structures, where structures are developed that produce patterns that produce the particular outcome. And then below that are the mental models that create the structures, that create the patterns, that create the problem. And in the next video, we'll explore this a little bit more, but the idea is that if we can intervene at the level of mental models, we can make a bigger difference into a system. And then the next one is looking at Aristotle's, which is also very similar to Donella Meadows and Peter Senge. So the idea is that Aristotle had what he called four causes. And the ideas are that the way things are determined by these four aspects of the thing. So Aristotle's pretty famous illustration of this is a statue. So the material of which the statue is made indicates the kind of form of the statue. So if it's marble, it's a certain way. If it's metal, it's a certain way. If it's ice, it's another way. the way you make it, or the efficient process, so the going from the material to the process, that also indicates what it looks like, what it's like in the end. So if you're making something with chisels, or if you're making something with a casting process, those are going to be completely different outcomes. So the way something is made is it indicates the outcome. Also, what is the purpose of making it? Like, why are you making it? Is this a utilitarian item? It probably won't be as aesthetic. But if it's for the purposes, if it's for the purposes of indicating some sort of emotion, then it'll look some other way. And then the last cause is, unto what are you doing this? Like, why are you actually even doing this particular thing? What's your underlying main reason for making a statue? And so that looking at all of these things also tries to get at the deep meanings, or the different ways of causing change in a system. Another system is that we use sometimes is called AdCar, and it's actually a step-by-step process to affect change, mostly in business. Awareness of the need for change, desire to support and participate in the change, knowledge of how the change is made. So if you can move through these steps, this will theoretically help people to change. Ability to implement a change, and then reinforcement to sustain the change. So you can see that if you're in a business, you might try to go through these step by step to enforce some particular change in a company. The next is project management. We're all familiar with this, both waterfall and agile project management. Often we're trying to make some particular change in a project, build something, or implement a new facility or something we're trying to plan. And so using project management techniques actually is a change process. Another is looking at working with your state. So the idea that when you sort of visualize or try to manifest a particular change, you can think about it, and then as those things happen, you can move towards that change. So it's not like magical thinking, that thinking about something makes it happen. It's actually embodying the change and then noticing when the change happens that you can move towards it. So in this example, if I'm sitting here visualizing a Cal Poly that's more diverse, that when I see that happening, I can encourage those things to happen. I have in my mind what it would be like to be more diverse, and so then I can notice those things and I can make it happen. And then that means that it will happen in the future as I'm moving towards that, or I'm helping others move towards that. And then the next one is means and ends. So the idea that you need to walk the walk, and it's important to do that in more than to talk the talk, that you need to be actually representing the change you want in the world. And that's an important change model, that if you do those things, then others will do it also. So everybody has a kind of preferred change model. Mine is definitely related to this sort of understanding what the future state is that I want, and making sure that I am doing that. And then also intervening at the level of structures when I'm thinking about what kind of changes I want to make in the world. Now, I hope that that's a sort of a quick introduction to change and change models that'll help us to get started as we continue this conversation.